Today's episode is presented by Veyer. Veyer was founded with the goal of building an affordable everyday wristwatch that blends tasteful design with extreme durability and functionality. Veyer returns a sense of dignity to affordable wristwatches and are built to last. Veyer is a true American watch company specialized in both quartz and atomic watches. Veyer is offering our listeners 15% off if you use the code PODGO15. That's PODGO 15. Go to VayerWatches.com. That's VAER Watches.com to learn more and get your new timepiece today. Now, on to episode 69 of The Next Best Bet. I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy, as always, and we got a big slate for you after a jam-packed weekend.
Episode 69. Very nice.
Very
Very
nice.
nice. But yeah, and a new ad campaign. Wow, Higgins, moving up in the world.
Moving on up. Now, I'm looking back at episode 68, Brett, you had a much better weekend than I did.
I had a pretty good episode, and to make my life even a little bit better, I was looking for a parlay partner with Tampa, and I got it with the Cubs, and both those teams won. I mentioned the Cubs line wasn't out by the time of our recording, but I picked it up in the morning. That was my lock. They played very well. And then also Utah beating the San Antonio Spurs, ending the 22-year playoff streak of San Antonio and Greg Popovich. So that was a nice win for me as well. They were heavy dogs in that one, and they pretty much led from tip off to finish.
Except you texted me a little worried in the fourth quarter when the Spurs tried doing a little bit of a push, but the Jazz still came out on top. Mine wasn't as good, Brett. I lost my Portland -9 bet. They ended up winning by, I believe, just 1 or 2 against the Brooklyn Nets. A much closer game, and I spoke reservations on 9 being a very big line. It turned out to be too big. Washington did not win the money line either, and then both of my UFC fights did not end up winning. Sean O'Malley looked like he broke his foot in the first round, and then he ended up taking a TKO after he tripped near the end of that first round. And then Daniel Cormier, a fantastic fight, but it just did not end up falling his way. It went to the judges' table. I thought there was a chance Cormier may have been able to take it, but I don't think it was strong enough necessarily to take a belt from somebody, so I agree with the judges' decision overall. The one win I did get was the Columbus Blue Jackets money line, and I was considering taking them tonight as well.
Yeah, Columbus has played well. We're definitely going to get to some hockey in a little bit, but let's hop on over to Beginners Boulevard and talk about taking the points, Higgins.
Taking the points is when someone says they're taking the points. It simply means they're taking the underdog with the spread. So that means, like I mentioned, the Brooklyn Nets and the Portland Trailblazers game that I lost, Portland was favored by 9 points. So that means if you were taking the points, you're taking the Nets +9, which would have been a good bet.
Yeah, and it's again just always good to add to your vocabulary, understand what people are saying when they're talking about sports wagering. So, sometimes you're not really betting teams, you're just betting numbers and saying that number is way too big. And I definitely have an example of that, or kind of the opposite of that, later with the Boston Celtics and the Sixers.
But let's jump into MLB first. A little bit of some injured list updates. Bo Bichette, he's headed to the IL with a knee injury. Oh no, Bichette. Ronald Acuna, he's heading to the IL with a wrist injury, and DJ LeMahieu is also heading to the IL with a thumb injury.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, LeMahieu and Acuna, well-known stars. Bichette was crushing it for Toronto. That is a huge blow to the Blue Jays. Not that I thought they were competing for a title this year, but he was having a really nice season for them. And it'll be disappointing to see all three of those guys out of the lineup for the near future.
Yeah, those guys are all pretty electrifying players, especially at the plate, so it'll be interesting to see how their teams make adjustments without them. The Reds Pirates, those games were postponed because the Reds had a coronavirus test positive, and I'm just wondering how many more instances of this are we going to have, Brett?
Yeah, you don't like to see it. I was seeing that the Reds are probably going to play on Tuesday as long as no one else tests positive. So we'll see what happens with that. But cautiously optimistic. And again, my advice would be pick up St. Louis Cardinals in your fantasy leagues because they're going to play more games the rest of the way. And it looks like maybe the Reds and Pirates will have some games to make up. So just by pure innings played, you'll have a advantage there.
Yeah, and whether it's a head-to-head matchup or a roto league, that would be beneficial for either of those, really.
Yeah, just definitely something to, as part of the COVID season, it's just another added wrinkle to the mix.
Let's jump into baseball, though. Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees, their game just finished on Sunday night right before we record, Brett. But it looks like they're going to have another game tomorrow, and 4-2 ending today. Can Boston make a comeback tomorrow?
I don't know. Montgomery is pitching for the Yankees tomorrow. Martin Perez is on the mound for the Red Sox. Montgomery's ERA is in the 5.17 range, so
Good.
that's not very good. So you got to think the Red Sox bats might wake up a little bit. I've told you in the past I like the Yankees over bet, and I think tomorrow's a good day for that. You just got news that LeMahieu is going to be on the DL. Obviously, Judge and Stanton are already out. They only scored 4 runs tonight, so maybe that line's a little lower than it should be for the Yankees playing at home.
Maybe it dips down a little bit. Not a bad strategy. Not a bad strategy. I'm looking at a different game. I'm looking at the Colorado at Houston Rockies versus Astros game, and Houston giving 1.5 runs. It's positive money though. It's plus 116. So I'm going to be taking that, and it's really just the numbers game because you look, you got Brandon Bilek against Kyle Freeland pitching, and both of these guys have pitched rather well. But Houston's a hitter's ballpark, so I'm expecting there's going to be a little bit of a separation there. And Bilek's pitched just a little bit better than Freeland, so I think that Houston could come out and get a multi-run win.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't matter where they're playing this game. The ball could easily just fly out of the park. But yeah, I think that's fair. That game scared me a little bit. Colorado has played well above expectations. In fact, I think they might even have more wins than Houston. I'm not looking at it, but
Well, yes, they're 13-8 and Houston's 11-10, but recently Colorado's on a 3-game losing streak where they've lost 2 of their 3 games by multiple runs, and Houston's on a 3-game winning streak where they've won 2 of those 3 games by multiple runs. So maybe a shift in the tides?
or just keep riding the wave. Keep riding the wave. So we'll see what happens in that one. That one was too close for me to call. But I saw Matthew Boyd on the mound on Monday in Detroit or in Chicago for Detroit, and when he is on the mound, he has an ERA north of 10, Higgins, and the over under is 9.5. So Matt Boyd could give that up himself. But I'm going to take the over 9.5. I hope for Matt Boyd he can figure it out. I don't like seeing players struggle like that. It's not fun for me, especially having worked with a lot of guys at the professional level and understanding what it takes day to day to go through that. But he has not pitched well, and I'm going to invest my money in that White Sox lineup versus a guy who has given up 5 home runs already on the year.
Yeah, and pitching's one of those things that it's until you prove the trend wrong, You might as well just keep riding that wave because slumps, whether it's in the box or on the mound, are very true things in baseball.
Yeah, I we're both kind of riding that wave, so we'll see what happens in those two games.
Yes, let's jump into Moneyline Magic, though. We have the Dallas Stars beating the Calgary Flames, not Dow versus Cal, Dow versus CGY, Brett. But
I
it was a
I
5
can't
to 4
escape this
game.
series. I can't escape it.
But it was a 5-4 game, an overtime winner that took a hell of an effort from the Stars, where they had a hat trick, their number one star player of the game, Joe Pavelski, scoring 3 goals on the way to sending it to overtime.
Yeah, how about that? Scoring your third goal of the game, and no goal was bigger. It tied it up, sent it to overtime, and the Stars were able to take it home.
Yes, he scored that late, too. Like 12 seconds left in regulation, Joe Pavelski scored that third goal. And then in overtime, Alexander Rudolov, he scored with 4 minutes left. So we have seen some late runs into these overtimes in this extended playoff scenario, Brett.
Yeah, and a lot of playoff records. The Stars were aggressive all day, taking their second highest shot total in franchise playoff history, 62 shots. So they needed every one of them to beat the Flames 5-4 today.
Yes, and Calgary has scored a shorthanded goal in 3 straight games. So just some very weird, interesting, record-breaking things going on in hockey right now. I'm enjoying it, even though it's still kind of weird watching hockey with no fans.
Yeah, well, hold on. You just said that pretty nonchalant there, but can I bet on Calgary to score in a fourth straight game? Like that's a pretty that's a nice little nugget, Higgins.
Yeah, it is. 3 straight games with a shorthanded goal. That's impressive. However, the penalty minutes have to be a little worrisome.
That is a very fair point. I just want to know if I could bet a fourth. Like, why
Maybe
not?
maybe we'll have to check a little closer to game time tomorrow and see if there's a line for that.
Oh, that would be funny. That would be a good thing for them to post. But let's hop into the NBA playoffs since they're starting up.
Yes, and
Um,
you said that you like this 76ers Boston game. Since that's a Monday game and the game I like is on Tuesday, let's have you start this off.
all right. So Boston plays the Sixers. Boston currently 5.5 point favorites against Philly. And honestly, the way Philly's played, they should probably be 8 point dogs to Boston. So I think that number's closer than I thought it would be. It's closer than what I would have it at personally. So I think there's value there, and I'm going to take Boston.
Okay, and that over under sitting at 218, that's an interesting number for me as well. Uh, the 76ers being impacted without Ben Simmons has been a very interesting scenario to watch in this NBA bubble, but who knows? Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris, they could get it done, but the positionless basketball that the Celtics play, I think that that's definitely going to give them the edge in this series.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited. I think Boston's a really good team. I think Toronto's a really good team. So those are teams I'll just be looking for early to come out strong. And if they look as good as I think they are, I'll probably be backing them a lot this postseason.
And the game that I'm going to be on Tuesday is going to be a very heated matchup between the Miami Heat and the Indiana Pacers because as we've spoke previously on this podcast, TJ Warren and Jimmy Butler have a little bit of a vendetta to settle with each other and this series is the perfect makings for it. TJ Warren has played spectacular. Jimmy Butler said he doesn't need any friends in the bubble and I'm going to be on Indiana +4. I think that these are going to be some close games, especially this first one. And so +4, I'm going to take the points.
All right. I respect that. I think it's going to be a close game. Yeah. I mean, that one was tough for me to call because again, Miami has a lot of guys that could just get hot from deep. Indiana's a little beat up. They lost Jeremy Lamb, honestly, before the bubble. Then they lost Sabonis, so it's a little bit tougher for me. But bubble TJ Warren is a different animal, so at least you got that going for you.
That over under also intrigues me at 216 and some pretty low numbers here. And as we saw at the beginning of the bubble, no fans meant lots of scoring, so maybe the same will ring true in the playoffs. I'm not quite sure yet, but these over unders do intrigue me a little bit.
Yeah. And there's a very low over under in the first game of the playoffs. And I wonder if Mike Conley leaving the bubble has anything to do with it. The over under in the Utah Denver game, tipping off at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, is 216. Denver's minus 200. Utah's plus 168. Denver's 5-point favorites. But do you think that Conley news has anything to do with where that line is?
I think so. I also think the fact that there could be 4 7-footers on the floor at any given point with Rudy Gobert and then the three for the Nuggets also could make this a little bit more of a brutal basketball game instead of a fast paced transition up and down the court type of game. I think that adds to it as well. But Mike Conley, great shooter, definitely has an impact on that.
Yeah, well, I guess biggest news for me about that is there's playoff basketball starting in the afternoon on Monday, going throughout the day, and I can't wait, Higgins.
Neither can I. There's also playoff hockey continuing on Monday, Brett. It's already been going on, but we have game four in 4 different games going on, and I like one of the first games. I like the first game that's going to be going on in Edmonton during the day, the Colorado Avalanche versus the Arizona Coyotes, and I'm taking the over at over 5.5 plus 120. This series has been pretty good. The last game had 6 goals scored. I think it's starting to open up for both of these offenses, whereas Colorado won both of the first 2 games, but the most goals that was scored in that was 5 in game two. So while 2 of these games have finished with goals of 5 or less, the most recent one was at 6. I think the offenses are starting to open back up a little bit. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw a pickup of the pace in game four. And if Arizona ties up the series, I wouldn't be surprised if it is 6 goals or more being scored.
Yeah, I really have no thoughts on the Avs Coyote series. I have not been able to follow it with all the sports going on, but I do know it's been close. So I think it'll be another competitive game between those two. Uh, what definitely caught my eyes in the NHL, Higgins, was Tuukka Rask leaving the bubble, and I definitely had to see how the Bruins reacted. They won 3-1 with Halak in net, and they looked pretty good. So I was leaning Boston tomorrow, only minus 130 on the money line. That's not a lot of juice there.
It's not a lot of juice there. You got to wonder, though, Halleck's picking up even a bigger responsibility, though, since it's going to be just him in the net, basically, with Rask gone now. So I don't know. I'm going to stay away from that. I am interested in this St. Louis Blues versus Vancouver Canucks game, though, because they're playing tonight as we're recording on Sunday night, Brett. And that game's barely even started just now, and they play on Monday night at 7:30 p.m. West Coast time as well. So the full 24 hours back-to-back schedule I find interesting in this playoff format, and the Blues being down 2 games to 0 so far coming into Sunday's game three. If they win on Sunday and then they won on Monday too and made it 2-2 real quick, that would be quite a momentum swing. So my eye's definitely going to be on that matchup as well.
Yeah, back to backs are always tough for both teams. I mean, back to backs take a lot out of you. And when your back's up against the wall, we've seen teams react differently. We saw Chicago push the series to 5. We saw the Capitals, I don't want to say lay down, but they did not look like the Washington Capitals that won the Stanley Cup 2 years ago. So it's definitely interesting to watch. And like you said, I'll be on that game watching as well.
It's going to be a little bit of a later time for you. That's going to be a 10:30 start time on the East
I
Coast.
don't sleep, Higgins. There's sports on.
I think 50 Cent said sleeping are for those who are broke. He doesn't sleep.
Right. Yeah. There you go. Me and 50.
Me and 50. All right, let's jump into the NFL because first off, round of applause for Alex Smith. This man had quite the road of recovery in terms of that brutal leg injury that he had. And he's finally been cleared from the pup list.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. A really awesome Instagram video of his kids and his family celebrating with him.
It was
So,
adorable.
yeah, it was awesome. So, I agree, Higgins. Round of applause. I'm very excited for him. And, hopefully he gets a chance to compete.
Hopefully he gets a chance to compete. And the way that Washington team is set up right now, I'm not sure Dwayne Haskins is the answer there. He's had some confidence issues last year, so it'll be interesting to see if Alex Smith can come back and take that potentially.
Yeah.
Even if not, he's just a valuable person to have in that quarterback room.
Worst case, he'll just come in and take the knee.
Speaking of legs, though, Brett, the Giants are looking at adding a new leg because their kicker, Aldrick Rojas, got into some legal trouble this offseason and got removed from the team. So now it looks like they're going to be signing Graham Gano to replace him.
Yeah, definitely not bad pickup for the Giants there. Adding a Pro Bowl kicker, not a bad pickup at all. And I thought this was pretty big news from the Ravens. Matt Sakura returned to practice. Now he tore his ACL in November, but anytime you get your center back for the MVP, that's definitely going to help.
Also, tearing your ACL in November and being back in August, that's a decent turnaround. Good for him.
Yeah, no, that's quick. That's Adrian Peterson speed, right? Recovery
Yeah.
speed.
And then the Jets, they got Chris Hogan. You're just trying to take anything that the Patriots might have made work and add it to that offense to give Sam Bradford something, aren't you?
I heard he might have played lacrosse. Chris Collinsworth may have mentioned that once or twice. I don't know. Have you heard
I
that?
think I think I did hear that. Penn State, right?
Yeah, it might have been a lacrosse player. Unsure.
Might have been a lacrosse player.
But yeah, it kind of makes sense. I heard something about Denzel Mims maybe having a hamstring injury. So you get another body in the wide receiver room. I think what we're going to see this year in all sports, I think the Major League Baseball seasons prove that. Lots of roster moves, Higgins.
Lots of roster moves, lots of waiver wire clears, lots of pickups and drops. It'll be like that guy in fantasy football that never has the same team week to week, always has at least 3 to 4 changes.
Well, and to be fair, you kind of have to do that. You have to adjust with everything. If the Cardinals aren't playing one week, you can't have any Cardinals on your team. And then the next week, when they're playing twice as many games as everyone else, you need all the Cardinals.
And then there's outside of the coronavirus, there's also just some of these moves that may not end up working. I mean, Melvin Gordon, he went to the Denver Broncos, and now there's rumors he's struggling to adjust to the altitude.
Yeah, I saw that too. I'm a little worried. That sounds a little concerning. Buy Philip Lindsay stock is what that says to me.
There's legitimate room for concern there. I know people that have moved to live out in the Rockies that aren't from that altitude. And for some people, they can adjust fine. And for others, it leads to migraines, it leads to lightheadedness. They never can quite fully adjust to that altitude change because it is quite different up there.
Yeah, no, it's a big difference. I mean, that's why all the Olympic athletes go and train in like Salt Lake City and Colorado Springs. Like, it's harder to train at altitude.
It is. So we'll see how that ends up affecting Melvin Gordon and if he can get that adjustment down. Who knows when he ended up making that move to Denver after he signed with Colorado. So maybe he's just getting to that altitude adjustment now. But it'll be interesting to see. Brett, before we get out of here, Levy Lock pick of the pod. Do you have a Levy Lock? 'Cause you won.
Yeah, I did win. I'm going to give you the Celtics minus 5.5. I really like that line. Brad Stevens was just signed to a big contract extension. Marcus Smart is one of the best six men in the league. Obviously, I think the world of Jason Tatum, Kemba Walker, Jalen Brown's a great two-way player. I think Boston could honestly sweep Philadelphia. And if Boston comes out strong tomorrow, Higgins, I will be backing them a lot in this postseason.
All right, and for the pick of the pod, I'm going to baseball. Houston minus 1.5 at plus 116. It's in Houston. Brandon Bilek is the pitcher on the mound for the Astros, and he's pitched remarkably well at 2-0 at 1.76 ERA. Now, Colorado, they're having one of their young aces on the mound as well, Kyle Freeland, who's pitching 2-0 with a 2.45 ERA. So, while there's two quality pitchers there, hitters ballpark like Houston, I'm going to give the edge to that lineup, and the positive money at minus 1.5 I think is pretty good odds.
Yeah, baseball, playoff basketball, playoff hockey. We got it all tomorrow or this week, Higgins.
Yeah, it's finally ramping up, and we have some playoff atmosphere. The hockey has definitely ramped up. NBA is definitely about to ramp up. We are going to see that firsthand on Monday. And baseball, I'm sure the Cardinals are ready to get back on that diamond, so that should be interesting to watch with plenty of doubleheaders coming up. Make sure to follow us on social media for more picks during the week when we're not recording an episode, that is, at NBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page. This has been episode 69 of the Next Best Bet. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you guys again on Thursday.